latest guest is a New York Times bestselling author with over 3 million copies sold. He also served more than 21 years in the military, retiring as a Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel. His impressive background brings authenticity to his books. Brad Taylor, welcome to Thriller Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here, man.
It's good to see
Brad,
you.
before we get into all the other questions, I know that your latest book, which I have right here, American Traitor, just came out. Can you tell readers a little bit about the book and how you came up with the plot idea for it?
Yeah, actually, this book was kind of a slow burn, really. I was in Lesotho, Africa, doing research for Operator Down books ago, and that book was about a coup. And so I had to go see the Parliament buildings and the police stations and that kind of stuff. And they had all these government buildings that were brand new. They were all being constructed. They were just really nice, and they had a bunch of Chinese lettering and signage on the outside, which I assume said something like "Wear a hard hat, passes point." But I thought it was extremely odd for Chinese lettering to be in Lesotho, Africa. So I asked the guy I was with, what's up with that? Oh, the Chinese are building this. And I said, what for? Well, they just want to be nice. And I was like, I'm not sure they just want to be nice. And that was my first real world contact with the Belt and Road Initiative from China, which is kind of a loan shark program. And they started building up in the news over and over. Every time Hong Kong started going down, Macau was going down, and everything China was doing, the Spratly Islands, they were building up that. We were doing freedom, we call them FONOPS, freedom of navigation exercise through the Taiwan Straits. Then the president of China said that I'm not going to pass the Taiwan problem to the next generation. I'm going to solve it in this generation. And I said, that's a story.
Mm. Yeah, it's fascinating. I love that you found this Chinese lettering in Africa too, because I've done a lot of research about Africa, and China's buying up a lot of natural resources there.
Yeah.
And doing it. It's absolutely fascinating what's going on. And I think not a lot of people know about it. How they're exchanging basically natural resources for schools and hospitals and other things.
Yeah, I tell you, All Necessary Forces is my second book, and there's the second chapter there is in South Sudan. And part of the problem they have in South Sudan is we don't have any, back then, that was 2012, we didn't have any relations down there, but China did, because they were running all the oil wells. China owned South Sudan, basically. If you want China to help out, you need to show China some pain. And that was way back when, 2012. They're all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's changing the world and the power shift for sure. So Brad, I know you used to teach military science. Now, without giving away any state secrets, can you explain to us the things that you taught and, just a little bit more about that experience?
Yeah, it's not that sexy. So I taught at the Citadel, it's a military college in South Carolina. And there's 7 senior military colleges in Title 10 United States Code, the Citadel being one. The others you could, probably figure out. You've got Norwich, you've got VMI, that kind of thing. So everybody at the school has to go to ROTC. That's part of the reasons you're there at the school. And I learned early on that out of a class of 60 students, I had 20 who were going to sit in a pack and tweet on their phones. I had 20 that would pretend like they were interested. And then I had 20 that really were interested because they were literally going in the Army. Most of the people at Citadel do not go in the Army. The commissioning rate is 30% for all services. And so I decided that I would design classes. If I was going to be a student that was graduating from college, what would I want them to know? And so I built a bunch of classes on insurgency, on terrorism, on logical thought. On all kinds of stuff. And then I made my deputy teach all the ROTC classes because there was a blanket thing you had to teach by Army rules. Here's what's got to be taught. I was like, you get those classes. I'm going to teach my classes. And that's what I did.
Well, it sounds actually quite fascinating. I would have been in the front row.
Yeah, actually, I used those classes. So I had my daughter was in high school at Ashley Hall here, which actually is in the book. So she went to Ashley Hall, and there was a lady that taught a senior seminar called Peace, War, and Defense, and she asked me if I'd come talk to them. And I was like, well, that'll be easy. I'll just pull these classes that I've already made, and I went and talked to them. And actually, as a side note, I was teaching a class on Title 10, Title 50. Title 10 is military operations. Title 50 is intelligence operations, and the difference between the two and what it means to do covert action. By law, not by what the press says. What covert action is, what it isn't, all this kind of stuff. And in the class, there were a bunch of Chinese students. I said, where are they from? They're from China. And I was like, none of this is classified, but do I really want to teach it to a bunch of Chinese? I mean, I did.
Brett, let's talk. Let's talk about what you have going on, or what you were known for years. Like, I can't believe this, but for years you somehow churned out 2 full-length novels and a novella every year, which is only more incredible when you consider that I'm pretty sure you did that without a dedicated formal office, and you are not a coffee drinker. So the whole thing blows my mind.
Right.
What's your schedule like now? And do you have more time on your hands now that you're only doing 1 book and 1 novella a year?
Yeah, actually, I have 2. Well, COVID has really ruined everything.
Yeah.
You'd think it'd be nice to be able to sit in your house and, write a book because COVID, but COVID has just really cramped my style. I actually, American Trader was the first book I've ever been late on a deadline. Every other book I was 6 months early. I came home from Taiwan and Australia and started writing the book. COVID hit, and we were all locked in, and kids came home from school, and one thing after another. It was just not conducive to writing anymore. Everywhere I would used to go write, I'd go to parks or to libraries or things like that to write. They're all closed. You're not allowed to go. You can't do this. You can't do that. And it was really hard just trying to get that book out. Every night I'd be like, you really got to get the book done. I had it in my head. I knew what I needed to do. I just mentally couldn't get it out. And since then, it's only gotten worse. I mean, we got 4,000 people a day dying now. And I'm working on the next book right now, and it's same type thing. I can't wait for this to be over.
Which thankfully doesn't come out till next year. Probably a good thing you're not on that 2-book schedule right now. Yeah,
exactly.
And you find your concentration sort of difficult? Is that what you're saying? Like that, just to
it's just you can't focus. There's just no sense of normalcy, I guess. There's no. I mean, I used to take my computer, which I'm talking to you on now. I don't have a writing desk. I would take this computer and go out to the park and type, or go to a library, or go wherever I wanted to go. Well, now they're all closed. I can't go anywhere, and so now I'm sitting in the house with a bunch of kids running around and dogs barking and things like that. And it's just very hard.
No, I can imagine. Well, let's hope things improve soon. We're in lockdown here in Toronto, so I hear you. So Brad, you write fantastic, strong female characters, which I love. Jennifer Cahill, Shoshana. Yeah. I would like to know, I know you wife and 2 daughters. So do you run scenarios by them to make sure it's authentic in how a woman would respond, or how does that work?
Yeah, not my daughters. I can barely get them to read my books anyway, which is embarrassing. Read my book, damn it. So, but my wife certainly. And I also have a lot of military members when I was in the service who were female, and I run it by them. And so it was a long, hard road to learn how to write in a female, and the third person with Jennifer. And Shoshana's a different character. I mean, I can write her because she's Looney Tunes. So that's an easy one. But Jennifer is a lot harder because she's not Looney Tunes. And when I had, I think it was Enemy of Mine, I was writing it, and I gave it to a female friend of mine that was in the service. And she just excoriated me about, what in the world? She sounds like a man with a wig on. Quit this, stop this, fix this. So I fixed it. And then she came back with, does she have a spine? I mean, come on. And it just went back and forth and back and forth. And so I had a lot to learn how to do that. So now I run them by them and say, how's that look? And if they say, this looks stupid, then I'll change it. If they say, yeah, I can see that, then I leave it in.
Is there anything funny that happened, like something you wrote you can tell us about, that was like a bit of a blooper for you?
Oh, it was the bloopers. I mean, I would send them huge swaths of writing. So it's not like a single sentence.
Yeah.
It's huge swaths, and they'd read it and get upset about it and say, this is ridiculous. She is, she might as well have a crew cut and a butch beard. And so I'd rewrite it, and then they'd come back and say, that's even more ridiculous. Now she looks like some simpering wimp who can't do anything.
Sounds like, by the way, the deputy commander of everything talks to you a little bit the way that Coco talks to Pike.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can't help but notice that.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, you're known for the amount of research you do for each book. And by that, I mean, you really believe in getting boots on ground and seeing the areas that you write about. I know that you have some fascinating / funny stories about things that have happened to you during those research trips. What's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you, though?
Well, those Lesotho story is the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, that's the thing that's I've never would have expected that because I was stupid enough to walk up and say I have an ID card, and I got detained for 8 hours as an American spy, where I learned a lot about Lesotho politics
Yeah.
that I would have never known because they were all interrogating me. That's probably the craziest. The stupidest thing I've ever done, though, was probably in Polaris Protocol. I went to Topito in north of Zocalo in Mexico City, and when we got out of there, I looking back on it, I'm like, I'm surprised we weren't killed. It was almost a riot. People banging on the hoods and throwing stuff at us, and that was pretty scary. And that's probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. For this book, we went to all over Taiwan, and we were all the night markets and things like that. And I was lucky enough. There was a buddy of mine, not a buddy of my brother's, who was an international businessman, Paul. He's actually the guy in the book named Paul.
Really?
He's he's an international businessman in the book. He's an MBS guy. He's a FBI, their version of the FBI. But he helped me do all the research that I needed to do anywhere I wanted to go. He'd tell me how to do this, how to do that, and what's this mean and what's that mean. And the layers, there's multiple layers of Taiwanese democracy and culture. He walked me through all that. And we went to the Shenlong night market, and I told Elaine before we left, I thought the night market was this, a night place where you buy a bunch of stuff. And I said, whatever we do, I'm not going to eat a bunch of goat balls or fish eyeballs, or I don't want to do that. We'll go to McDonald's afterwards because I'm American. And we get to the night market, and it's nothing but food. Everything there is food. And the guide we hired to help us, his whole thing is to walk us through all the food. You're going to eat tofu, you're going to eat this, you're going to eat that. And then he's going to get dinner because we're going to pay for his dinner. And we started walking through it. I was like, I don't want any of this. Just show me the night market. Let me go see all this stuff. And so I went running around. It was a mass of people. I mean, probably 5,000 people packed into this thing. And I did see a lot of stuff. It all ended up in the book. There's a couple of airsoft gun things that were going on and things like that. People are blowtorching. There's a thing where they had this flamethrower. They're cooking stuff with literal flamethrower. And eventually Lane said, I think he thinks we're supposed to eat dinner and he's expecting dinner. I said, all right, let's go get some dinner. So we went down to the bottom in the basement, which is in the book as well, and ordered a bunch of food and ate it, and he was happy with that. But he felt bad because he was trying to show me all their food culture. I'm not a foodie. I mean, I'm meat and potatoes. I don't care about anything else. Elaine is, so she was eating everything, but I was like, I don't want to eat all this. Just give me meat and potatoes.
Is there anything interesting that you ate that you could tell us about? Like
stinky tofu.
What is it?
It's called stinky tofu, and it
great name.
God awful stinky. I mean, it smells like socks that have been left in a laundromat forever. It's horrible smelling, and they're proud of it. They say stinky tofu. Here it is, and it looks like kind of a marshmallow thing, and it stinks to high heaven. And you eat it, and it's actually pretty good, but it's just like, why on earth would who invented this? Did somebody wake up one day and say, hey, that smells like my butt crack. Let me eat some of that. I mean,
and let's call it stinky tofu.
It's called stinky tofu.
Great branding, by the way. Yeah, really great branding on that one.
Do you have any idea what's on it? I mean, I've had tofu many times, but not stinky.
I have no idea.
Okay.
They're proud of it. That's
okay. I love it. So, Brad, if your publisher came to you and said, I'd like you to write a standalone novel, so no Pike Logan, what would your character do for a living?
Well, he'd probably be a private investigator, I guess. I like murder mysteries. That's what I read. I would say he'd be a cop, but I haven't been a cop. And the only reason that Pike is what he is because people say, write what you know. I wanted to write a story of redemption with One Rough Man. If I'd have been a police officer, he'd have been a cop. If I'd have been a priest, then Jennifer would have been a nun. I happen to be a special forces guy, so Pike became special forces, but that wasn't the driving impetus of writing that story. The redemptive theme was the driving impetus. And I get asked a lot if you're going to track off and write a different series, and I'm like, well, if I did, it'd be Pike Logan with blonde hair. I haven't run out of Pike Logan stories. Why would I start with somebody new? It's not something I really want to do.
I'm also pretty sure your publisher would have something to say about that. I'm thinking they're going to
Oh
want
yeah,
another Pike Logan book, definitely, right?
yeah.
This segues perfectly into my question, by the way, though, which is recently someone on Twitter told me that when they picture Pike Logan, they read the books or the audiobooks, they imagine you, which I found hilarious because I actually do the same exact thing. I picture Brad Taylor / Pike Logan running around doing all this stuff. Obviously, your fans know about your background in the military, etc. But how much of Pike Logan is really you, and how are you guys different?
I'd say that Pike Logan is. I'm definitely not Pike Logan. I'm kind of a smart ass, so his smart ass is probably the closest thing that comes to me. And it was very, very hard to get to the level of special operations I did. I mean, incredibly hard. But even at that level, there is a quantifiable difference in skill sets. I mean, there are some people who are innately Pike Logan. Well, what I usually say is probably 1% of the world could play on the PGA Tour. I mean, 1% of the world. Everybody knows Tiger Woods. There's a guy who's 100th on the money list that nobody's ever heard of, but he's playing on the PGA Tour. I was on the Special Operations PGA Tour, but I'm 100th on the money list. And Pike Logan is Tiger Woods. I've served with plenty of Pike Logans and seen the skills they offer, but I am not he. I'll tell you that.
And Brad, you set your books all over the world, and your characters are very international. How do you come up with the character names? And does the meaning of the name, is that important to you?
Actually, the names are one of the hardest things. And I mean, when you say names, because I've got character names on the task force team, which I spend a lot of time on. But then you have the character names of these antagonists who, okay, that guy's a Sunni Arab. They have certain naming structures. That guy's a Shia Arab. That has certain naming structures. That guy's from Bosnia. That has certain naming. In fact, I can't remember the book. I think it was All Necessary Force. Yeah, they go to Bosnia and run around Bosnia. And I couldn't find a Bosniak name. Bosniak is a Muslim in Bosnia, but Bosnia's got Catholics, Croats, all these things. So I needed a Bosniak name. And so I found online a wedding invitation, which they invited everybody to come to. And so I named this guy after that, Juka, whatever his name was. Then I got an email. Hey, that's a Serbian name. I'm like, I can't win. I mean, I did whatever I could do to figure this out. I'm sorry. He invited to serve, and I chose that name. So it's very hard to make sure the names fit, first of all. And especially for American Trader, Chinese names are just all ass backwards. And I mean, that was damn near impossible. And then talking to Paul, half the people in Taiwan, if you're under the age of 60, you pick a English name. Sometimes you pick a name because your Chinese name sounds like that, like flower or whatever. Other times you just pick a name. He picked Paul because it was easy to spell. He was learning English, and he was like, I want Paul. And that's what he became. And so trying to make sure that's accurate is very, very hard to do. Sometimes I just want to start calling everybody, he's just unsub 1 and that's unsub 2 and there's unsub 3. Just keep it straight.
I'm just saying, if you ever run out, Ryan is just laying there. Kimberly, KJ, it's just they're available. I'm just saying, Brett. All right, so a lot of authors have weighed in lately about whether or not they'll be writing COVID into their books. And I'm just wondering, do you know yet how you're going to address that in your next book?
I do. And I've decided, because I started writing the book and COVID was running amok. And then the vaccine came out and I'm like, what in the hell? This thing's going to come out a year from now. So I'm going to set it in the summertime in the future, like next June. And so it allows, because one of the plot points is that America can't fly anywhere because we're so COVID destroyed, but Israel can go anywhere. And you see where this is going, right?
Yeah.
So Aaron and Shoshana are going to get Pike and Jennifer into Europe because they're Israelis. And then the vaccine rollout, as I thought it would happen, it's kind of been slow. So if I set it in June, they'll be allowed to fly, but there'll still be enough guys running around with masks that it'll have an impact on what they're doing. But this is the last time I'll ever touch COVID, ever. Ever. I can't stand it.
Still exciting, though. We know Shoshana's coming back. That means there's going to be a high body count because every time she shows up, bad guys stop breathing in bunches everywhere. So,
you read the target, right?
Yeah.
So the Ram said the target is going to get killed in this book, and that kind of sets her off.
Oh, well, listen, I'm all for it now.
And Brad, do you have a title for this new book?
No, I don't. I would tell you that what I think my title is.
Sure.
But my publisher's not going to like my title. I hate to throw it out there. So my title is Road to Armageddon. So he's probably not going to like that. So in fact, I know he doesn't. I've already told him. So it won't be called that when the book comes out.
Too many letters in Armageddon to fit on the cover, right? And how about other projects, Brad? Before we let you go, we'd love to hear. Is there anything else you're working on, or how you kind of project the next couple of years will go?
No, I just right now I'm working on my family. My daughter just went back to college yesterday. My other daughter's in nursing school and taking care of Elaine. So I don't look 5 years down the road. I look at this book. I got to get this book done. Here's what I have to do for this. And then when the book's done, I usually say, why'd you do all that in that book? Because now it's going to hurt the next book. Like Daughter of War, I should have killed Amina at the bottom of Daughter of War because now she's in the universe. I have to deal with her the rest of this time. So I don't have the ability to I've heard some authors say that, 10 books from now, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, wow, I can't think past the next chapter. Way to go. So I don't have any thoughts on what's going to happen in the future of my life.
It makes it interesting though, Brad, because you just write yourself into a corner and then you have the challenge of writing yourself back out again. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it is tough with the series. I think as you get deeper into the series, because you have to have the history there. Have you ever done a Bible?
I am in the process of doing it right now. By Bible, you mean a character arc of each person, things like that? Yeah. I never did, and it's bit me in the ass more times than I can count. And so we are doing it right now, which is a lot of work, especially with all the different characters who've come and gone and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's I should have done it. I mean, I never thought it'd be published. I certainly didn't think I'd have 15 books out. Yes. So probably by book 3, I should have been smart enough to start doing that, and I didn't. And so now I'm going back and saying, okay, you got to figure this out.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Brad. It's been an absolute pleasure. And Ryan, do you want to hold up?
Yeah, pick it up. Go get it. Here it is.